Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be reacting to another video. This one's going to be a little bit different than the ones we've been doing in the past. It is not sports related, but it's a little bit of a history lesson, something that I'm not too familiar with. I know of the European Union. This is going to be the history of the European Union. I know what it is. I've heard of it. I know a little bit about it, but I don't know the nitty gritty, and I definitely don't know the history. I mean, I'm just an average American, pretty ignorant to what goes on in the rest of the world sometimes. Just gonna say, sorry. But hopefully this video will enlighten me and maybe some of you out there as to what's actually going on and a little bit of the history there. So if you end up liking this video, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you can stay updated and notified when I post my videos twice a day. We are cruising on up and we are growing as a channel, and I'm super excited to be here and have you guys coming with me. So let's get right into the video and not waste any more time. Alright, History of the European Union by Geo History.
The story begins at the end of World War II, as the European continent lies devastated, leaving the United States and the USSR as the two major world powers. Their growing rivalry marks the beginning of the Cold War. While the Soviets control Eastern Europe, the West looks to the US for reconstruction aid. While the old continent is found divided by the Iron Curtain, in the West, the idea of European unity begins to take hold. On the 9th of May 1950, France, via its Foreign Minister Robert Schuman, proposes a Franco-German reconciliation and placing under a common high authority the production of coal and steel, the main wealth of industrialized countries, which is also needed for the manufacture of weapons.
It almost seems like this European Union was kind of starting to be created to kind of, work together and pool resources to kind of come back after the war, after World War II.
The aim is to boost the economy and maintain peace, with the project left open to countries wishing to join. The following year in Paris, 6 countries sign a treaty establishing the European Coal and Steel Community. As Germany is divided by the Iron Curtain, only West Germany becomes part of it. To accelerate the development of Europe, the 6 founding countries meet on the 25th of March 1957 in Rome to sign 2 new treaties. The first treaty creates the European Economic Community, whose main objective is to establish a common market, including allowing the free movement of workers and eliminating tariffs between member states.
Alright, so in 1957, is this kind of when things start to move from just like coal and steel and pulling those types of resources together to build the economy, and now it's starting to move towards this more economic and more freedom of immigration between? Is this where it starts to kind of advance from 1957 on?
The treaty also defines common policies on transport, trade, and agriculture. The Common Agricultural Policy, among other goals, aims to increase agricultural productivity, offer reasonable prices, and ensure a fair standard of living for farmers. The second treaty establishes the European Atomic Energy Community, coordinating civilian nuclear research programs. The Treaties of Rome enter into force in 1958, but it would take several years for its policies to be implemented. Many countries asked to join the communities, including the United Kingdom, but France, under the leadership of Charles de Gaulle, vetoes the accession request, considering the UK as too close of an ally to the United States.
So France said no to the UK because they were too close of allies with the United States. Now, why at that time did they not want the United States? Like, what was the problem with the United States? Interesting.
The institutions of the 3 communities are merged to enable more efficient functioning. There is now a single commission composed of commissioners chosen by the heads of state. Its role is to propose European laws in the common interest of its members. There is the Council, made up of ministers of the member states, and whose role it is to approve, modify, or reject the proposals of the Commission. There is the Parliament, representing the people of Europe, and which also gives its opinion on Commission proposals. Its power would increase over forthcoming treaties. Finally, there is a Court of Justice that rules over the legality of decisions taken. In 1967, the United Kingdom renews its request for membership, which France opposes a second time. With the removal of tariffs for
Why?
industrial and agricultural products and the free movement of workers, the economic situation improves rapidly.
So now, is that all relative to where it was after the war? It improved rapidly, obviously, because Europe was pretty destroyed after that. I'm curious why France said no a second time to the UK. That's interesting. Is it because of us again? Is it our fault?
Prompting a new wave of membership applications. This time, negotiations go well, but in Norway, the population opposes the country's accession in a referendum. In 1973, Ireland, the United
Norway
Kingdom,
said no.
and Denmark joined the community.
Okay, so it was 1973 that they finally were let in.
In Paris, the heads of state and government come to an agreement to create the European Council. Leaders would meet at least 3 times a year to together define the broad guidelines of the community. South of the continent, after the end of dictatorships in Portugal, Greece, and Spain, the 3 countries request membership of the community. In 1979, for the first time, members of the European Parliament are elected by universal suffrage. In 1981, Greece joins the community, while the following year, Greenland, which receives more autonomy from Denmark, chooses to leave the community after a referendum. In 1984,
But why did they want to leave? That's interesting.
the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher says it does not benefit enough from the Common Agricultural Policy, which then represented 80% of EU spending. The country negotiates to obtain a reduction in its contribution to the community's budget. In 1986, Spain and Portugal joined the community. 12 member states and the European Commission give a boost to the internal market by signing the Single European Act. In addition to eliminating custom fees, the goal is to remove all obstacles to the free movement of people, goods, capital, and services. It is the Single Market Project to be completed by 1993.
You know, it seems very interesting. Just as being an American, just having open borders throughout the whole country like that, it seems like it could lead to some problems. And I'm also wondering, you know, again, I don't really know anything about why people are joining or leaving, but you know, do people start to just join because everybody else is doing it, and then you're kind of frowned upon? You know, if you're in Europe and you're the only country not in the union, does that kind of look bad on you, or does that make things more difficult for you as a country, even if the benefits maybe aren't there for you to be in the European Union? Because we obviously saw the UK was having problems. They thought they were spending too much and not getting enough in return. So it seems like there's a lot of room for issues.
After the fall of the Berlin Wall, Germany is reunified. In the east, the USSR can no longer contain revolts and collapses, opening up new horizons for the community, which establishes contacts with the countries of Eastern Europe. On 7th of February 1992, European heads of state signed the Maastricht Treaty. The European Union is created and gets new powers. The treaty envisages an economic union and the future creation of a common European currency. All countries ratify the treaty, including Denmark, where 2 referendums and negotiations to be exempted from the common currency are required.
Okay, so it actually wasn't until the early 90s when it was the official European Union and we start to get the universal currency. Okay.
A new wave of countries request membership to the Union, but Switzerland and then Norway oppose potential candidacy via referendums.
That's the second time
On the other
Norway.
hand, in Austria,
Said no.
Sweden, and Finland, negotiations succeed, and in 1995, the EU grows to 15 members.
Okay.
Signed in Schengen, Luxembourg in 1985, the Schengen Agreement is gradually introduced from 1995. Its objective is to abolish border controls and therefore have total freedom of movement within the European Union. The agreement is incorporated into the European Union through the Treaty of Amsterdam.
Now, just curious, what are your guys' opinions on that? Try to keep it civil. I don't want to start any like crazy political fiascos, but do you like how is it with just open borders like that throughout the continent?
In addition, the common currency project advances, which would be called the euro. However, the United Kingdom, Sweden, and Denmark do not want it. The remaining member countries set up the European Central Bank. The euro was officially launched on the market in 1999, although
Okay.
the currency would be put into circulation only from the 1st of January 2002. As negotiations take place to enlarge the union, heads of state meet in Nice to try and improve the structure of the union. The outcome of the Treaty of Nice is considered mixed. 2 referendums are needed in Ireland for it to come into force.
Hmm.
On the 1st of May 2004, 10 new countries are included in the European Union. All new members joined the Schengen area with the exception of Cyprus, as part of the island is controlled by the Turkish army since 1974.
It's so
After
teeny.
the half-failure of the Treaty of Nice, the 25 heads of state meet in Rome to again try to streamline the functioning of the European Union. This time, they aim to create a constitutional treaty that would replace all existing treaties with a single text. This sparks heated debate across Europe.
I bet.
Fearing an overly powerful European Union at the expense of national sovereignty, the French and Dutch populations oppose the treaty via referendums. This triggers a period of reflection and in-depth consultation within member states. On January 1, 2007, Romania and Bulgaria joined the European Union. The same year, 27 heads of state signed the Treaty of Lisbon, which aims to strengthen and improve the functioning of the EU after enlargement. Notably, it is agreed that the EU's role is to promote peace, support sustainable development, fight against social exclusion and discrimination, and safeguard cultural heritage.
See, the problem is though, I think like those are all good fundamental values, but the larger you get, the more blanketed those values start to become. Like it's hard to say, what do those things mean, and what is the incentive, because there's different cultures throughout these places, and it's how do you force people into doing things, in all these different cultures. I mean, it's just very blanketed, and I wonder. I've heard in the past, like over the years ago, and even leading up to today, issues with the European Union, just in the media and stuff like that. Never looked into it too much, but I'm wondering 2007 if this is where we start to see more disagreement between people and policies.
The treaty is ratified by all states but Ireland, which holds a referendum and rejects it. Yet again, more negotiations and a second referendum would be needed in Ireland for it to take effect. The global economic and financial crisis has repercussions on the Eurozone, which enters a recession. After the rout of major European banks, many countries find themselves in difficulty. In particular, Greece, part of whose public debt has been kept hidden with the help of consultants from the Goldman Sachs Bank. The country is forced to ask for financial aid from the Eurozone and the IMF, in exchange for which it must implement austerity measures. Ireland, coming to the aid of its banks, also sees its public debt explode. But the country does not want to ask for aid from the Eurozone, fearing it may in return be forced to raise its low corporate tax rates. The country finally receives aid all the same, in exchange for which it must adopt a strict plan. Subsequently, Portugal, Greece a second time, Spain, and then Cyprus obtains financial aid from the Eurozone, while almost everywhere on the continent, austerity plans are put into place.
This might be what I was hearing about. It seems like everybody's going into debt.
2013, Croatia joined
It's
the
becoming a
European
welfare
Union.
kind of
At
system.
the borders of the continent, the so-called Arab Spring creates instability in many countries. The civil war in Syria, a second civil war in Libya and in Iraq, and other events such as the war in Afghanistan and violence in the Horn of Africa push many people to migrate to Europe. Despite the construction of walls at the Turkish border, in 2015, over 1 million migrants entered the Schengen area.
And then they're just, I mean, if they can get into a European Union country, they're pretty much just free to move through the whole European Union, right? Because isn't the whole premise like open borders and travel? Unless I'm missing something, but that seems like pretty scary.
Europe tries to slow the flow of migration. Security patrols are reinforced on the Mediterranean Sea, while certain countries temporarily reintroduce controls at their borders. In addition, the European Union signs agreements with Turkey and then with Libya, where the political situation is very unstable, so that they control and block the so-called illegal migration routes in exchange for financial aid.
So now they're paying other people. They're paying people outside the union, so they're not seeing that money in return in any sort of the way, to just help take care of their problem for them, which is not going to help your financial situation anymore.
Migrant processing centers are funded mainly in Italy and Greece, where migrants find themselves awaiting regularization in overcrowded conditions. The migration crisis divides European countries and fuels the rise of nationalist and Eurosceptic parties.
Brexit. All right.
In June 2016, the United Kingdom, through a referendum, votes in favor of leaving the European Union. The
I heard about
country
this.
then enters long and difficult negotiations with the European Union to define the conditions of their withdrawal. After numerous failures, an agreement for Brexit is finally reached, and the United Kingdom exits the EU on January 31, 2020. While the UK no longer has any decision-making power in the bloc, it continues to contribute to the European budget and receive funding at least until the end of the year. Deadline, it is meant to negotiate future agreements with the EU, in particular concerning customs duties, free movement, the status of Europeans living in the United Kingdom and vice versa, and the status of the border that separates Ireland from Northern Ireland.
So they're going to basically discuss whether or not they're going to become part of the EU again, because all those things that they just talked about is basically what the European Union is. So interesting. So people in the UK, I'm sure it's a polarizing topic. Again, I don't know much about it, so I'm not here to try and get everybody upset, because I really don't know anything about this stuff. I've heard some of these names, and I've heard about Brexit, but this is interesting. So what are your guys' thoughts on it? Like, how do you feel living there? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Let me know.
After the departure of the United Kingdom, the European Union has 27 member states with a population of about 450 million. Negotiations
Nice.
are underway for the accession of new countries, mostly
Just a bit more than the US.
Negotiations for Turkey's accession, which started in 2005, are stalled. 19 countries are members of the Eurozone, while 6 other countries have adopted the Euro without being a member of the Eurozone or the EU. Finally, the Schengen area now comprises 26 states, including 4 non-members of the European Union, with Cyprus, Croatia, Bulgaria, and Romania expected to integrate soon.
Interesting. Okay, wow. That was a very interesting and informative video. That was a lot to take in one go. I might have to go watch that again or twice just to try and get all the dates and the history. But yeah, so I have a lot of questions too. And again, I don't want to get anybody upset. I'm sure this is, again, it's a polarizing thing. Maybe it's not, but anytime you talk about countries and immigration and politics and money, it can get real squirrely. So that's not necessarily the 10. I was trying to learn more so than anything. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on Brexit in particular, in the sense that if you live in the UK, do you see benefit from it? Do you not? I mean, it's still pretty early. I guess we'll see in the next 5-10 years what really happens. But yeah, it seemed like the European Union was originally established. This is from my just perspective off this video, to kind of bring the continent, bring all those European countries that were destroyed in World War II kind of back up on their feet, to kind of pool their resources together to help each other out with steel and coal. Because I'm sure there are countries in there that don't have as many resources as each other. So, and then it started to move towards more, all right, now we're going to let people move freely across borders, and now we're all going to use the same currency, and we're going to create these councils. There was so much different like councils and parties and different organizations that kind of all ran all this stuff. And I mean, we have all these kinds of things in America too, so it's I understand it. So this is just like there's so much, it's so overwhelming. But it seems like the more this progresses, there's a lot of room for problems, and the more countries that become involved, the more potential for problems there is. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but you guys let me know. I'm just an average American. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But if you're sticking around to this point in the video, thank you so much. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and the bell notification so you can stay updated on my videos twice a day, posting them at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. But thanks so much. We're growing as a channel. I appreciate you guys so much for being here. Peace, love. We'll see you later.